Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we are going to talk about recoil management. Actually, it's the second step for mastering any FPS game. The first step will be, of course, your mouse and keyboard settings. So to do that we are going to use Battlefield, but it can be applied to any FPS game. So the first step will be eliminating the human factor, which means I'm not going to use the mouse, I'm going to use the keyboard for ADS and for firing. I chose a heavy gun with lots of recoil, it's the M60, and we are going to focus on the vertical recoil because it's the hardest thing to manage. So I pull out these stats from Simtech. The link is in the description. Personally, I'm not into checking every gun stats or remember it while playing. I pulled the M60 stats just to have a point of reference. And of course, you don't need this video or any video to know how to counter recoil. You do it subconscious. But there are some tips and points that will help you to manage or counter your recoil a lot better. Trust me on that. So these are the stats of the M60 recoil. We are going to focus on the vertical recoil, 0.6 degrees up. First shot multiplier 1.5 degrees, and the recoil decrease, it's in milliseconds. We are going to cover it later on. So we just fired our first shot. As you see on the screen, it's pretty straightforward. 1.5, it's the first shot multiplier, times 0.6 is 0.9. In fact, this is our real starting point unless you pull a headshot. The result, as you see, it's the vertical recoil. So from now on, every shot will be 0.6 degrees times the previous value. Remember, the value is in degrees, so the distance from the target does matter. A quick reminder, I'm not using the mouse, I'm using the keyboard. So watch what happened when I stopped firing. The gun returned to its initial position, the exact point before the first shot. Interesting. If it's that straightforward with a predictable and known behavior, why is it hard to counter the recoil sometimes? The short answer is you, me, the user. The user brings a factor that it's impossible to predict, but it's possible to control. In this example, the distance that the barrel is traveling vertical, as you see, it's pretty high on full auto, and on the burst fire it's about 50% less. In other words, burst fire, it's always a good idea. Moving over to shooting normally with the mouse and countering the recoil. Now I'm exaggerating the movement so you can see my hand and the barrel movement at the same time. Look what happened when I stopped firing. The mouse had been pulled back to counter the recoil, and when we are stopped firing, the barrel dropped down because there is no more recoil and the pull is still there. And on top of that, the reduction system come into play. So we have to compensate. The best way to do that, in my opinion, is to overcompensate or to exaggerate the movement. After some practice, you will nail it with any gun. Mastering it, meaning when you switch over to your secondary, your sight will be exactly the same point as they were before you switch. Practice on an empty map, it will take you about 10 to 15 minutes to master a specific gun. But the real test is, of course, in a match. Let's do a short recap. First thing first. Take the gun that you want to master, find yourself on an empty map, and start shooting. Do it on short range, medium range, and long range. Of course, on full and on burst, ADS. And remember, this is very important, remember to compensate. The next thing, while shooting, switch to your secondary. Do it, of course, on short, medium, and long, full auto, and burst. The last thing, that it's helpful in many situations, is to learn how to counter the recoil with hip fire. So do it on a short range, medium range. There is no sense doing that on the long range. That's it for this video. I hope it was informative, and please leave a comment and tell me what you think.